Our guest today is the juggernaut of real estate television. He used his fame to become the world's most famous real estate broker and has parlayed that into his empire. At just 2 years old, his brokerage is the 6th highest grossing brokerage in all of New York City and has now expanded into how many markets?
6 yesterday.
6 yesterday, so is now in half a dozen more markets and growing. All that while becoming, in the words of Gary Vee, the go-to sales coach for any business. Without further ado, Ryan Serhant.
Thanks, man. What a stellar intro.
Was that good?
Yeah, it was good.
Well, it was either that or go with ChatGPT, which might have given a little bit more info.
What my ChatGPT bio is, it's crazy, man. This whole AI thing is the most insane thing ever.
It's wild.
Yeah. And what's nuts is we only just found out about it this year, a couple months ago, and now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
How things just sort of catch on fire.
I feel like I heard about it back in the fall. And when I heard about it, it was from a buddy of mine who owns a metaverse marketing agency. Okay. So I thought it was something where you needed to be a part of this clique.
Oh yeah.
He mentioned something about a legal document, doing it through ChatGPT, and because ChatGPT doesn't sound like something inviting that we know how to use, I thought you needed an NFT to be able to use it.
It wasn't AI.com.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah. No, but it's kind of like you mentioned NFTs. It's even when, what was it, in 2021, right? I had no idea what an NFT was. Next thing you know, one person mentions it, and then everyone has them, from creators to athletes to major brands, and they just catch fire, right? And then it becomes a massive trend, and you kind of see what happens from there.
And everybody was trying to create an NFT program, and I was trying to myself look at all right, if I were to create a real estate NFT program, what would it look like? And I took out a pen and paper and I wrote, so probably a little over a year ago, wrote down the whole business model, and it just looked like an EBT model. Why wouldn't I just do a monthly billing versus buying an NFT? And that's when I was like, all right, the NFT thing's not good for the real estate business.
Yeah. I was at a V-Friends breakfast this morning with Gary. And it's interesting though, yes, there's some investment value to the NFTs, and that market spiked and then has since come down, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Is the V-Friends program still
yeah, he still
full
does.
Steam ahead?
He still does all of his commitments that were attached to every NFT that he agreed to, and the breakfast and the dinners and the VCon every year and all that stuff. So there's still very much a major community element to it, right? Which we can relate to in this business. The brokerage industry is community-based. Our clients, right? It's a lot of times you have the same types of clients all in the same community, and they refer friends to each other, and people want to work with similar people. It's funny, at the breakfast I was at this morning, a lot of those people knew each other already. So one was probably dude, Gary's got an NFT, you should buy. Okay, I'll buy if you buy. Okay, what if the 4 of us all buy, and then we could all go have breakfast with him in New York City?
The breakfast was all people who have purchased the NFTs.
One type of NFT. I think it was the PD Pirate or breakfast burrito or tuna taco. Or
if there's right, but if there's anybody that needs to keep face with the NFT community, it's Gary.
Yes.
With the amount of content that he puts out about it.
Yeah, very much so. I just noticed your hat. Look at that.
You like that?
That is cool. That was fast.
Yeah.
Nice.
Ordered these right when I made the decision.
Awesome.
The one with the all black.
Love it.
You love it, right?
Yeah, it's super cool.
I'll get you one.
Okay, great. Thanks.
You got it. All right. So I like to go back to the format of the show because we really want to know about Ryan Serhant, who he is, how'd you get here. But first, tell me what you're doing now. I know you're doing a lot, but how would you compartmentalize it? Elevator pitch. What are you doing right now?
Right now, we are, I would say, really building out the long-term vision for the business, right? So being Serhant, the brokerage, right? Serhant Brokerage, Serhant Education, and Serhant Studios are our 3 businesses, right? We have real estate brokerage, we have sales training, and then we have real estate media.
And does sales training fall into ventures?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so, the Ventures is kind of what we call the group. And so, when we started the business, I mean, I guess if I go back even further, like 2008 to 2020, it was 12 years, I was a real estate broker. I ran a team. I did other things, right? I did a TV show. I wrote, a book. We had our podcast. I did some social stuff. We did some brand deals. Started speaking tours. Did a little bit of the sales training, a little bit of the media. But that was like my predominant life was running around and showing houses all day long, going to pitches, and then building up a sales team. And then I blew all that up in 2020, which was always the plan. COVID wasn't the plan, so it stalled. It delayed me for a few months. For the best though, looking back on it.
So how long would you say you were planning the exit?
I was planning my exit for a couple years. It took me a long time. And then I was aggressively exiting for 6, 7, 8 months.
Kind of like, I'm doing this, but no, we'll give you this to stay?
It was not a pleasant situation. It was more of a, hey, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. Let's figure this out, and that took a long time because we had a significant amount of new development business. We had a lot of towers. We had a lot of towers signed that were coming. I had 65 people on the team that had deals in motion.
Right, and these people are signing up for Ryan. They're not signing up for nest seekers.
Yeah, I think listen, there's two sides to every story, but what I knew was that when I was pitching and agents were coming over, they very much wanted me, so they were joining my team. Yep. And then we had our systems, and when developers were hiring me, like they were hiring me, and I had to be there. Like that was the work. And so in 2020, I blew all that up, and we started the company. And my long-term vision when we started the company was like 12 months out. It was like survive. Build, make it awesome, survive. Okay, we survived, great. Now 2021, all right, let's figure out what this feels like as we kind of start to scale. Okay, that worked. Now 2022, all right, what do we need to put together so that we can really run with this? And where do you think we could go? Like, should we be in that state or this state? Should we go international? Should we not? Let's focus on growth. And my roles are always very much brand and expand. Like that's what I do. I think we talked about that a little bit, right? Like brand and expand all day long. And so 2023 for me, like on cue, we knew the market was going to start correcting, and we knew that would be the perfect time to start growing. While every other brokerage firm starts to pull back and is going to have cost cuts, and people are going to be nervous about the marketplace, that's a great moment for us to say, zip, and just start moving really quickly because we can do it pretty efficiently.
And at what point from 2020 to 2023 are you bringing on a CFO? And kind of like...
Oh, she was first. Dude, she was hire number one before the company even existed.
There you go. Because really looking at the nitty gritty and how much everything is going to cost,
yeah,
and doing a 12-month plan, even you told me you look 24 months out.
Yeah.
That's probably the most vital position.
Yes. So definitely the first thing we did was we hired our CFO, which COVID actually helped us with. Like, when COVID hit, every company let go of everyone and or furloughed people. They let people out of non-competes, they let people out of non-solicits, as long as I don't have to pay you anymore. Oh my God, the world's coming to an end. So for me, coming out of the gate, I was gonna start my own company anyway. It was like, okay, all of a sudden, all this fresh talent came into place. Like we never would have gotten Natalie, who's the CFO of Douglas Elliman for 7 years.
Did not realize that's where she came from.
Yeah, man. And she ran finance for Compass. Like she, has been around the block. She would never have been able to leave, but COVID helped out. So a lot of our first hires, COVID really, really helped. Same thing, like I was prepared to launch this business on July 1st of 2020. And it was a different world then in 2020. Like the riots had just happened, right? It was a bad, dark time in the United States specifically, and in New York City, there was, every building was boarded up. So I was like, you know what, we're gonna give this 2.5 months, and that gave us an extra 2.5 months to really bake the business and find even more people, and then we started hiring from there.
When you started up, was this all self-funded, Ryan only, or did you have a partner?
No partners. The last thing I wanted was a partner. I'd rather take all the risk, right, and have like everything weigh on my shoulders than have to potentially like deal with someone who does not agree with me.
So looking back, you wouldn't do anything differently.
No, I mean,
Well, there has to be something. In the last 3 years, what would you have done differently? Like, are you happy with this office? Is this location good for you?
yeah, this location's great for us.
Do you think it's big enough? What are we in, 3,400 square feet here? Or 34,000 square feet?
15,000. The whole building's 15,000 square feet.
It feels bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
4 floors?
Yeah. I would say, what I would have done differently? I probably would have just focused more. Like once you start running your own business, all of a sudden you wear 100 hats. And like a whole week will go by where you like are working on putting out fires over here, and you totally forgot about everything that you were doing over here. And that's like, I didn't really realize that that's what I was doing until it had already been done.
So would you say the issue was focus or not properly delegating?
Well, we just didn't have enough people to delegate to, because remember, we're self-funded, so it's not like I had $1 billion in the bank and was like, all right, we'll spend to fix our problems. We'll just hire, right?
Which other companies do.
Correct, yeah. And dude, if someone gave me $1 billion today, I would do the same thing. Like I would, you can't hate the player, you got to hate the game. And if the directive is spend money, take market share, then dude, I am a money spending, market share stealing guy. Like if that's the business. But I think with me, we didn't have that. So it was, how do you build a good business, right? That is profitable in great markets and in bad markets. How do you build a business that can pivot, that can move quickly to the benefit of the agents? And I think that, I don't know, I probably would have also gone even harder on like the benefit for agents to be here. Whereas in the beginning, I spent so much time on like a lot of the, I don't know, just like a lot of the busy work and a lot of the stuff.
I respect that. Like, especially in real estate, as brokers, this is what we do. And like a lot of team leaders, I mean, I didn't have a team until a year ago because I just did everything on my own. I brought in all my own content creators, I produced everything, and then just having a team. And that's a big reason why I came to Serhant, because it aligned with my business perfectly. Being able to have an in-house media company, being able to have a smaller group of highly producing professionals who are ready to fucking rock. Yeah. So that's what you're doing now.
Yes.
How'd you get started? I mean, let's avoid the ChatGPT Google response. What made you come to New York? And we know the story of how you got into rentals, but
I came to New York. I went to college in upstate New York.
By way of?
Hamilton College.
No, where'd you grow up?
Oh, outside Boston.
Outside Boston.
I was born in Texas, bounced around Long Island a little bit, and then really kind of grew up in North Shore Boston.
Where in Long Island?
Oyster Bay and Lloyd Neck. And then grew up outside Boston. That's where I went to high school, and then went to college in upstate New York. And the only thing I ever really liked was acting, was theater, right? Was making movies with my friends. Like it was just what I was passionate about. And LA was just too far. Like my parents were East Coast, my friends were East Coast, everything I knew was the East Coast. And I was nervous too. It's like, if I go to LA and I know nobody, like what do I do? At least if I'm in New York, all my friends from college moved to New York City. My parents are like 4 hours away, and where they were, I could figure it out, right? And I was used to it. Like I'd been to New York multiple times. By that point, like I'd never even been to LA in my life. And so after college, I basically said, okay, I'm gonna give myself 2 years, right? 2 years, live off my summer work savings. My grandfather had died and I think left me 20 grand or something, and put that in a CD, and just said I'm just gonna live as efficiently and as tight as I possibly can, live in the smallest, shittiest apartment. I'm gonna make this money stretch as long as I possibly can. That way I don't have to get like a bartending job or a waiting job or like a temp job like a lot of people do. And I'm just gonna be relentless all day, every day. As an actor, like just go, and I was in auditions,
Did you have representation?
I did eventually, because I eventually got onto a soap opera.
What year was this?
2007. So it's, yeah, because 2007, and then the writer's strike hit. Back in the day, if you remember, like the Daily Show went off air and all that stuff, and all the shows went down, and it killed soap operas because soap operas have to shoot an episode and a half every day.
Jesus.
And so they started cutting costs, and to cut costs on a soap opera, you fire actors. And so I went from being like this awesome biochemist prodigy to killing everybody and then dying. And so then I died. And then it was like, what do? I hand modeled a little bit, and I just kept trying to like push my time in New York. Because my parents were very much like, hey, you get it out of your system yet?
You hand modeled?
Yeah, successfully.
Very Costanza of you.
Yeah. If you Google Ryan Serhant hand model, it is a trip. Dude, hand modeling paid way more than acting did for me. Like the soap opera was $844 an episode, which after taxes and everything, I drew it myself, but after taxes and everything were, it's like $530 a day, to do like kind of like your SAG rate on for a recurring role. I get $150 an hour cash to hand model, and so you do a 10-hour day, and I'd make $1,000. You'd make between $1,000 and $1,500.
It's great,
right? Which is great, and then you didn't have to worry about taxes for a year. Because you're 1099s.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. I was like, this is great. And so I held phones for AT&T. I held Nespresso capsules. I was Michael Phelps's hands after he won the Olympics. Like, dude, I did a lot of handiwork.
And that's funny because you're tall.
Yeah.
You're a tall, handsome guy.
The modeling was terrible for me. I was
but
like the
you
worst
were
model
a
ever.
hand model.
Yeah, no, dude, I modeled, the most modeling I ever did, like face and body, was for Damon John's company, FUBU. I was like,
how does that even make sense?
Dude, I was like the white guy. So, like I was definitely out of my lane.
Are these pictures Googleable?
I don't know. You know what? I've never found them.
Be.
I think I did one catalog.
Somebody do a deep dive.
Where it was like, hey, are you a preppy white guy and you want to be cool? Wear FUBU. And the clothes were massive on me, I remember because we shot, the photo studio for that was in the Empire State Building, and I'll never forget that because it was the most uncomfortable I've ever been. I just didn't know, like that's one of those moments where you're like, what do I do with my legs? Like, where do I put my hands? How do I do this? Hand modeling is great. They would flip me upside down. And I would, because again, I guess just like technology's gotten so much better now with Photoshop and everything. But this was 2007, 2008, even 2009 when I was in real estate. I was still hand modeling, and they'd flip you upside down, and you'd have to hold your hands out above you for extended periods of time, so that they could photograph them seamlessly, right? So that the camera could be like this, and you got to put your hands up in front. And so that you would drain all the blood out of your hands and your arms to remove all the veins. And so the cleaner your hands look, the more androgynous they look, and the more it could be like, oh, that's not a dude's hands holding that iPhone. That's just nice hands. And so it spent a lot of time like hanging like this, like hold, dude. And then they'd be like, please move your left pinky metatarsal, and I'd be like, oh God, the finger, and then you'd start cramping, dude. It was hard, man. It was hard.
Yeah, it was good pay.
Yeah, it was good pay. Couldn't do it forever. And so then in the summer of 2008, a friend of mine was just like, you can't hand model for the rest of your life. You just got killed off that soap opera. You either move home with your parents, who by that point had moved to Colorado, or you stay in New York City. And dude, acting is sales. You should just get into real estate. Get your real estate license, rent apartments, meet people on Craigslist. You don't have to do much. If you rent one apartment a month, 2 apartments a month, you pay all your bills.
And back then, you wake up in the morning, put up some Craigslist posts.
Put up some ads, you say hot, right? 1 month free, 2 months free. You meet people on corners, you meet them at Starbucks. You take them to like rental buildings that were paying OPs and all that fun stuff. And that's what I did for my first like couple years. And then you slowly get addicted to it versus the acting, which is where you would go and sit in an audition and you wait for like 4 hours to get seen, and then by the time they see you, like they've already made their choice, but they're just going to be nice to you, and you go in there, and then it's weird, and then they're drinking coffee and slurping, and then one guy burps, and then they're on their phone the whole time, and then you're like, great, I spent my day was just this.
Sounds very defeating.
Super defeating. Tons and tons of rejection that's personal, like because of your face, and your voice, and like we don't like your hair kind of thing,
Yeah.
Whereas in real estate, like, there was definitely rejection, and it could be defeating, but it was over the real estate, which was much easier rejection for me. Like no one ever came to me and said, hey, we were going to lease that apartment at the Echelon, on West 21st Street, which is a building that opened when I first started. And but your nose is too weird, so sorry, we went with another agent.
So would you say that this period in time might have been your rock bottom moment? Like when?
2008. Not because of Lehman Brothers. 2008 because I just ran out of money being in New York City, and then I had no identity. Like if I wasn't trying to be an actor, which I tried to do for so long, and now I'm just gonna prolong my stay in New York by being a realtor. Like who am I? What am I? What did
your parents say?
They were,
and they're in Colorado at this time.
Correct. So they were supportive, but probably very just nervous.
Were they supportive with a deadline? Like, hey, if you don't do X by Y, then you got to come home and figure it out.
Yeah, that was the 2 years.
Okay.
Right. So that was the 2 years. Like you can always come home. I was never gonna be homeless. Right. So I could always go home, but that to me meant mass failure. Like if I can't figure this out, because then I knew I was gonna move to Colorado, I'd move home, and I would never come back. Like I had tons of friends and people I met in theater and everything who, didn't make money for a couple months and they just moved home to save up, never came back. It's just way too hard. You never do it. Like you can't have a get up and go attitude twice. Like no. What got you here, it's not gonna get you here twice. And so, my parents were supportive, and then I was able to buy time with the real estate thing. And then I think as I started doing more rental deals and started making a little bit more money, even though my first year I made $9,000, but my second year I made 50,
okay.
50 grand, something
Working
like that.
Where?
Just doing rentals in Koreatown.
Well, which company were you with?
Nest Seekers. Oh. I was always at the same place.
Oh.
Yeah.
You had longevity there.
12 years, baby. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I was never, for me, well, one, I didn't take it seriously at the beginning. So it wasn't I was way too intimidated to go to a big firm with agents that wore suits and.
What would you wear to listings? I remember, I started summer 2009.
Yeah.
And I remember going to show a building on 56 and First, and I remember showing up to the appointment in sandals and a backwards hat that said shit on it.
Yeah, that wasn't me. I wore khaki pants, tucked in collared shirt, cowboy boots or loafers kind of thing. I think I had one suit that I'd gotten from Macy's that I just wore a lot.
And are you at this time, you're I'm gonna play the part, because I'm an actor. So I know how to play a real estate agent, and if I do it every day, I'm gonna become a real estate agent.
In hindsight, yes. At the time, no. At the time, I was just I have to make money. You better rent this damn apartment, right? And then how long does it take to get paid? I have to submit an invoice. How does this work? I have to run your credit. How do I even do that? You're just learning through the process. But it wasn't until this woman from China. So how do I do it? I would put rental ads on Craigslist, but then back then you could have whatever title you wanted in this business. So I just called myself, I think, a senior vice president, because you could. There was no issues. They've now changed that, probably for the better. But I was a senior vice president. I was 23, I guess, 23, 24.
So next to your headshot, it said senior vice president.
Yep.
Next to a 25-year-old.
Yeah, I guess so in 2008. Yeah, I turned 24, right? So, so I was 24, 25, and so I was senior vice president. Dude, there was people that worked at that company that were global president of sales and just random shit that just didn't mean anything. No. But then you could also post open listings and fake listings back then. You can't do that anymore. Right. But back then, I would find photos of, just random apartments on the Upper West Side, and I would post them at random prices just to see if you can get leads. There was no Streezy, there's no Premier Agent, there was no Zillow leads that way. So it was either you had a network, you met people on the street, or you did open listings kind of that way. And so one apartment that I posted, I think was photos of an apartment in Chicago, and I said it was on the West Side.
What?
Yep. And a woman called from China.
Where did you even grab photos?
I just Googled it, and I was like, this is beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, beautiful interiors. And a woman from China reached out. And again, this is not me being sleazy or scammy. This is what I was trained to do.
Right. I was trained the exact same way back. So I started when I was
boiler room.
I started in 2009. It was the same thing. Wake up, put up 12 ads with catchy titles.
Yeah. That's all
and
you
like
do.
exciting pictures.
Yep.
And just get the phone numbers, get the emails.
And you book an appointment, no matter what. No matter what they want to see, you'd have no idea what they were saying on the phone. You're like, all right, we're going to meet at this corner, 42nd and 1st Avenue at noon. I'll see you there. And then you just figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? And so this one woman from China reached out that said she wanted to buy an apartment on the west side. And she reached out to me because to buy
an apartment.
Correct. To buy an apartment. And she reached out to me because I was a senior vice president at the company. Right? And I said, great. Awesome. And my gut instinct in that moment was immediately to pass her off, just because I had no idea, like, how do I sell an apartment? You know, it can't be that hard, but like, I had never done it before, and I had total imposter syndrome, especially this woman from China.
100%.
Is crazy. And there was no one else in the office at the time, so I just sort of winged it. I was like, sure, I'll send you options. And she was very responsive and going back and forth, and then she made the decision that she wanted to fly to New York and see them, and I was like, holy shit. And at that point, I was like, wait a minute, no one else has helped me yet. I've managed this whole conversation completely by myself. I now have a woman from China flying in to meet with me to buy a potentially a multi-million-dollar apartment. She said her budget was between $2 and $3 million.
Right, so your communication with her at this point. Email, right, because there's no FaceTime.
Yeah.
Any bit of that was just on Skype.
Yeah, she just saw my headshot, so she knew I was young, but she didn't know I was like young.
No, she knew you had a great title though.
Yeah,
you were responsible.
Yeah, I was a hustler, right? And so, and no one else in my office would help me, even with like little things, because they were all just too busy. And at that moment I was like, okay, if some random woman from China is gonna email me cold and come to New York and potentially spend $2 to $3 million with me, imagine what would happen if I like actually tried to get women like her, get buyers like her, get clients like her in New York even. Imagine what would happen. And I got myself a new suit on a credit card. I got myself a car and driver on a credit card. Totally freaked myself out, but I was like, I got to give her the Rolls Royce treatment if she buys. And I memorized all the information about every building I was going to take her to. Oh, by the way, she said she wanted to buy an apartment on the west side. This was early 2009, so I just got into it. On the west side of Manhattan for her daughter, who wasn't even born yet, because her daughter was going to go to Columbia.
What kind of suit did you buy?
I think it was like like some random suit from Macy's. I lived at 38 West 31st Street.
Right there.
So I was right across the street from Macy's. Anything I needed, dude, this is, again, pre-buy everything on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, dude, I gotta be close to Macy's. Like, anything I need is right there.
So she comes in.
Flies in. She's in a velour tracksuit, staying at the St. Regis Hotel in Midtown. I pick her up. She's by herself, by herself, pregnant. Little lady gets in the car, immediately falls asleep from jet lag. And I would have to like nudge her, be like, hello, we're at the next building now, and walk her through all these buildings. And the one building where she walked in and her eyes lit up and she was excited was at 80 Riverside Boulevard, apartment 21L. And that was the first multi-million-dollar apartment that we sold, and we did that deal at like 2 a.m. because that's when she was most awake. I brought her like McDonald's.
Oh my God.
And we negotiated, and the commission was like plus. I mean, I guess the gross commission was like $60,000. So after my splits and everything, it was less, right? I think because I also. It gets complicated, but I think my check, I think at the end of the day on that deal, I guess after like the net effective gross commission, I think it was like $25,000. And it was the biggest check I'd ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
Like it was like models and bottles money. I held it in 2 hands and took it to the bank. And to when it finally closed and I finally deposited it. And that was, my rent was $1,100 a month. So that was 2 years of rent that I just put to the bank.
When you closed that deal, who's the first person you called?
Dad. Yeah.
Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, I think it was I'm rich. Something like that. And he was quick to correct me.
But he was like, you got this. Like, you're not rich, but you got a thing going.
I think he was also, he knew what my rent was, he knew what my expenses were. I think they were like a little bit of a sigh of relief of like, okay, and were you just lucky at that? Or like, is this something that you're going to be able to do? And what he said to me was kind of what I was just saying, which is, okay, imagine if you actually tried, and like look at the street of New York City. Every single person here is that woman, except they're not looking for you. What happens when you start to look for them? And that really, in early 2009, had me set on, okay, I think I know what to do. Like I have to build a personal brand for myself. People need to know that I sell real estate. I'm not from here. I don't fit in whatsoever, but I'm gonna make this happen. And then just started running from there.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you remember what your second deal was? I guess more so, better question. You said, I can do this now here.
Yep.
How quickly did you?
Not that quickly. I mean, that was my second year, and so that I didn't make that much money. Did that one, then I did an apartment at 350 West 42nd Street, the Orion, which was an Nextel building. And then I met these renters and I convinced them to sell their place. It was like $600,000 at Sterling Plaza, which is on East 49th Street. And then they bought a place with me. So that was my first like, hey, sell buy, which I thought was awesome. Because it was basically like one client relationship in 2 deals. Yep. And they bought a place at the Atelier at 635 West 42nd Street. And then from there, I saw that there were agents who were killing it in Long Island City. Because again, we're in like the middle of the recession. Like, you know, markets are blown up. Everyone's also getting fired. I was meeting a lot of people that were also getting fired all the time. Right? There was mass layoffs and everything. So I was still doing rentals.
But what were the people who were getting fired doing?
Banking.
Got it.
Right,
but like,
sector.
what were you meeting them for?
To potentially buy or sell stuff.
Got it.
And I was still posting open listings. Like I didn't have my own listing. My first real listing was at 401 East 60th Street. I think it was apartment 32C. It was designed by Jamie Drake. It was insane. It was $3 million. I don't even remember how we found, I think they were like a FSBO that we converted. I don't know why they ever trusted us. And it was like a 1-month agreement and we definitely did not sell it. It was so expensive. It sold by, someone else sold it later on. But then I started doing Long Island City. And because I saw that, you know, I would meet a buyer on the Upper East Side, right? And then they would want the Upper West. And then they'd say, what about Gramercy? That's cool. And then they'd say, my friend just bought something in the financial district. Those buildings have a lot of amenities. Can we see there? And then they'd say, should I look at Brooklyn? And then they would get fired. Or or like go do something with somebody else. And that would be like months, right? So I'm like, okay, so that's not great. Long Island City, I can meet somebody and there was only 5 buildings to choose from. And most people that I would meet in Long Island City, kind of in that part of Queens, they weren't going between like LIC and Central Park. Like they could only afford Long Island City, you know, and the deals were basically $500,000 to $900,000, and you would meet them on the corner of, you know, you meet them basically like right there on Vernon Boulevard, and you just take them to 5 buildings, and they would pick one if they wanted to buy.
And how are you getting these?
Craigslist, all Craigslist.
Sellers or renters?
Buyers.
Or buyers or buyers?
Buyers all through Craigslist.
You were getting buyers from Craigslist?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and so I would take them to the View at East Coast. I'd take them to Hunters Point, Hunters View, Powerhouse, L House, and 5SL. So there were
City
6
Lights?
of the bidders. City Lights, old co-op, so I didn't do a whole lot at City Lights. And another broker that I knew was like, never do co-ops. You know, you do all that work and then the board will reject your client because of their race. And I'm like, oh God, that sounds terrible. I don't want to do that. So I'd only take people to like new construction condos. And I really learned like how to do the tours that way, like how to structure my day that way, how to have discipline that way, how to talk about different buildings that way. And from there, you know, I got noticed by the Alganians of, at that time, Rock Rose, and started working on sales at a building called the View at East Coast, which is 4730 Center Boulevard. And then from there, they were like, we want you guys to also take on sales for our building that we have in the financial district called 99 John Street. 442 units, rental to condo conversion. The market was total shit. No one was buying anything. You couldn't get financing. And so I interviewed to do that, and they picked me, and so I went there and started doing. Wow. And so I became like the sales director for this massive conversion building.
And this was
25.
25.
Yeah. And so so that was the end of 2009, leading into 2010. $1 million listing casting happened in March of 2010. That cast all the way through the fall as I'm selling 99 John all day long. And they cast us in the fall. And I started filming in December of 2010. And I saw Tom Alganian, who's a beast. He's like, you know, the OG of this business in New York City. And every time I see him, I come up and give him like a massive hug. Like you don't know what like you did for me.
He's the owner of Rock Rose.
TF Cornerstone now because they split, right? The brothers all split. So TF Cornerstone, I think he's always like taken aback. It's like, yeah, it's okay, buddy. But yeah, man, fond memories back then. Tough market though. Like it's wild. I think the best piece of advice I've gotten in a long time, especially like in volatile markets like this one that we're in now, where it's like, is it good? Is it bad? I don't know what's happening. Is this too shall pass. When things are too good, it's not going to last forever. When things are bad and you're like, I hate this business, this week is awful, I hate this, it's also not going to last. Like everything comes to an end.
And I've noticed, now this is 23, 24, 25-year-old you, over a decade later, you still have the same principles now that you did then, more so looking at having the principles then where proper preparation.
Yeah.
You speak about always not being nervous because you're properly prepared.
Yeah.
Was that something that your father instilled in you?
A little bit him, but I think a lot bit acting. Like the actor's nightmare that you have is that you don't know your lines. And so I didn't really know how to go into situations without being prepared. And memorizing my lines for an audition or for a play or for a student film at NYU even was much harder than memorizing generic bullet point facts about any building. So all I knew how to do was then, okay, I'm going to show you this listing that I have at 250 East 49th Street, and then I'm going to show you 4 other buildings nearby. I'm just going to memorize everything I can. Like who developed it, when was it built, how many units are in the building, what are the resales right now, what are the comps right now, any celebrities living there, anything cool happening, what should I know, how many coffee shops are there, how many restaurants are there, where's the dog park, like all this stuff, compared to memorizing a book of dialogue.
So when you do
way
that,
easier.
When you're looking at a condo, are you now taking all the info, putting it in a Word doc, and rehearsing it to yourself?
I would write it by hand.
You'd write it by hand, and then you're going through it.
Yeah,
like
and just memorizing
like
pretty quickly. I've always had, the theater thing for me was from when I was a little kid. So I can memorize short-term info pretty quick. Like it's definitely a skill set you can learn. Because I don't think I was always good at it, but I can like look at something, understand it pretty quickly, and then repeat it. Tomorrow I would have no idea. So like that frontal cortex is definitely very strong, but like the long-term memory tends to move out of the way.
Favorite role you ever played?
Ryan Serhant on $1 Million Listing New York. That was probably my favorite role because that was like me on crack.
Favorite fully scripted role you've ever played?
Ryan Serhant on $1 Million Listing. No, favorite scripted role, I would say.
You ever do Grease?
But it's like one of the side
I
dancer
could see you
guys.
as like Duty.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
You're a Duty.
I could be a duty. I played Stanley Kowalski in A Streetcar Named Desire, and that was probably like a very intense. I don't know. That was just such a cool time because you had like, dude, like if I knew then what I knew now, I would have told myself just to chill, like just relax. I think it was like a very stressed out.
Well, you're
high
saying it
school
like
college
that.
student.
Back then, there wasn't even social media.
I know,
So,
but
like,
I
back
put a
then-
lot of pressure on myself. I still do that now, so maybe it's just a character trait that I never get out of. Like even if 70-year-old Ryan Serhant walked through that door right now and was like, chill out, everything's gonna be fine, I would be like, go fuck yourself, old man. Like, what are you talking about? You're not me. Like, I'd be even more stressed. Like, that's what I'm gonna look like? I have to take care of myself. Oh God, I saw future me and I was not impressed. But yeah, memorizing was helpful, and that's how I would like beat the internet. And because I would see a lot of agents who would like mumble through showings, and like clients would ask them generic questions, and they just wouldn't know the answer. Like, but that's so easy. Like, how do you just not know the answer? And then all you have to do is figure out an opinion. Like, have an opinion on the facts, and then that's how you build trust. Also, start telling people no. Like, every time, if I would show you 3 apartments or 10 apartments, I'd find 1 or 2 that I'm gonna show you, or the minute we get out of there, I'm like, you are definitely not renting that. You are not buying that. And it was like the greatest sales tactic ever, because people were like, really? But I liked it. Like, if you want it, let's talk about the pros and cons, but here are the reasons that I don't like it for you. And they would always be like, oh, thank you, I didn't even realize.
And would you always bookend it like, this is not for you? but here's why, and here's something that you're gonna love.
Sometimes depending on the client. I would try to be careful with phrasing things that way, because it would feel like I set them up, right? And it'd be like, and now I'm going to take you to this one where I make more money. Right. So I would walk in, I would basically set it up like, okay, we're going to see 8 apartments. They're all awesome. We're not wasting our time. Let's go. And then I would be surprised, like going in one, and I would see their look on their face if like they were like, yeah, and I would be like, no, we should go. I'd walk out and I'd be like, sorry, that sucked. Let's leave. You know. That way, when we both found something that like she liked as well, and I would see their eyes, I'd be like, I know, keep it calm, be calm, it's fine, right? And we get outside and we're like, all right, let's talk about it, you know, and start closing early, yeah. And then I would do the wow moment. The wow moment in showings is where like one of the first apartments that I would show someone is like 10 times outside their budget, you know, something massive, just to like wow them, to bring them back down to reality. Which I always found saved me tons of time.
But did it bother some people? Like, why are you showing me this?
No, I would never do it if it was like an unbelievable waste of time. I wasn't like, hey, I know you want to see the Upper East Side. All right, come downtown with me for an hour.
Or if it was an absorbent amount more than what they're looking at.
Yeah, although I did do that one time with a house that's up there on the wall in Palm Beach in 2021. He told me his budget was 20 to 50 million, which is a lot. And the first house I showed him was 140, and that's the one he bought.
Jesus. And that's how we opened the firm.
No, we were open already. Yeah, exactly. We were open already. But that was a great investment into the business, that's for sure. But
yeah.
He also, that was a wow moment. And he asked me, he's like, why did you bring me here? And I was immediately like, I'm sorry, we just had time on the schedule. The next house we're seeing is right down the block. He's like, but I want it.
Yeah.
And then my gut instinct was, no, you do not want this. This is not what we can. Go get your wife out of the closet. We're getting in the car. We're getting out of here. Like, just play the no. Because if I was like, awesome, let's do it. Let's write up an offer. Then he probably changes his mind, right? Everybody, whether you're a billionaire or you have $4, everyone wants what they can't have. They all want to feel like there's someone else who wants it.
Right. So I'm going to go get something for 50 million, but someone else is buying this?
Yeah.
Fuck that.
Exactly.
This is mine.
I do that. I took him, the next place was like $53 million, and I think like he vomited.
Think about what we're talking about.
But it's all relative.
50, you're right.
It's all relative. Yeah, I hear you.
$53 million
Yeah.
is insane.
Dude, it's exactly. But it's but listen, it was great value. It's an amazing house. Like, it's not gonna, no one's ever gonna rebuild it. You know, so still kind of relatively a great deal. So there were great purchases that we were doing through Florida in 2021 and 2022. You know, and it's, you know, Florida's a pro-business, pro-development state. You know, and a lot of those New Yorkers that came down used New York tax money, whatever money they were going to give to the New York government, like the 15% all in, basically. They'd say, okay, I'm going to go buy myself a beach house instead. I do not need to be here anymore. It's New York's loss.
Now it works out that we have a presence down there.
Yeah, as of yesterday.
So, speaking of having a presence.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago when I first started here, we had our initial meeting, a protocol meeting.
Yep.
So you have a meeting with everybody. Now you walked in the room, and I don't know why, I got nervous off the bat with you.
Oh.
I got nervous, and I prepared. I had
You did prepare. You had a whole presentation. You had everything.
An awesome presentation.
Yeah.
That I knew was going to make your head explode.
Yeah.
But instinctively, initially, I froze up and I was like, so how'd you get a $1 million listing? Not that I don't give a shit, but like, I didn't really care how you got a $1 million listing. I could have Googled it. We could have talked about that at any time. In my head, now you're talking and I'm like, tick, tick, tick. I know we have 30 minutes, 27 minutes, 22 minutes, and I'm like, don't interrupt him. When can we stop and get to the pitch? Now,
you should have interrupted me. Dude, I didn't, just so you know, like, that didn't read to me whatsoever.
100%. So what I want to ask is, you have these protocol meetings with everybody that joins the firm.
Yeah.
In my head, I also was thinking the first time, not that you gave this impression, but I only have 30 minutes. He's just doing this because it's protocol. He doesn't actually care. Do you care?
100% I care.
Why?
Yeah. Because I think it's a big risk. I don't think it's a risk, really, because I know that I'll take care of everybody. But I get it. Like, every agent who comes here has 1,000 options. Start your own company, go to this brokerage, go to that brokerage, do whatever you want. You don't have to come here. Like, you don't have to work here. You don't have to deal with me and our stuff. And like, there's so many places for you to work. Like, I am very, very, very grateful and super excited for everyone who chooses to hang their hat here. And so if I had the time during the day to have hour or 2 hour long meetings, like I totally would. And as we get to know each other, we'll spend a lot more time together. But at least like in that first kind of 10-day window, I like to at least make sure, like, let's have a high efficiency, like, sit down. Like, no matter what my schedule is, no matter where I am, like, I make time for agents first, because I'm a real estate agent at the end of the day. Less and less now, but I'm a real estate agent. This whole company was built by agents, for what agents want in 2023 and beyond. This is not like a fundraised, hey, what do we think agents need? We're gonna disrupt the real estate game and then lose all our money.
No, we're doing stuff that no other firm could do.
Yeah, they could do it, but it would be false. So like, every other firm could, dude, there's other.
Well, no firm has.
Element has $200 million in cash. They could hire a studio, but it would be
They
false.
could, exactly. Right. It would be like And One making basketball sneakers.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It would be off-brand.
Yes.
Right. The same way, like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what other company. Like, if I all of a sudden was like, you know what, I love what Sotheby's and Christie's do. I'm gonna set up an art auction house here. It'd be called like Serhant. I don't even know. Serhant Auction House. Like, could I do it?
Serhant
sure.
Art.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Could I do it? Yes. Would it be false, inauthentic to our brand? 100%. So, like, why would I enter that world? And so, like, I knew what my value add was going to be for every agent that was ever going to be here. And I just said, listen, let's just go hard on that. My value add is not going to be in having cubicles and bench desk seating all over the place, and it's not going to be in this, and it's not going to be in that. I want to help every agent and every team build their own brands to help generate more business, to make more money for the rest of their lives, right? I want to work hand in hand in them and do deals together and go on and take on the universe, and that's going to be our thing. Let's see if it works.
I love that. Now, give me one word of advice to anyone trying to make it in New York.
In New York,
one word.
One word? So this is one word with a hyphen, okay, which is just follow up. Like, follow up is the secret. Like, that's it. Like, just follow up. Yeah, like, follow up forever. Follow up is what I will say all the time, even to buyers who are like, you don't have to email me as much. I'm like, I follow up with you till you buy or die, just so you know. And then when you do die, I will mourn you and cry, and I will come to your funeral, and I will sell houses to your entire family. Right?
Love that.
Yeah, and I tell them, like, to their face. It's kind of funny when I say it, but I'm also dead serious. Like, so I got to be close enough to you that, like, your family invites me to your funeral.
Yeah.
You know.
I actually had a buddy hit me up last week. Hey, this house is coming available in my development that I want to purchase. Can we find out who the broker is?
Yeah.
Ends up, the deceased put a broker in his will.
Oh.
The deceased put, this broker is going to sell my house.
Really?
In the will.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And before I let you go, one book recommendation for anybody. Well, what are you reading right now? Are you reading right now? Do you have time to read?
I wish. I always try to make the effort to read, and then I just don't. One book recommendation is probably Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. It is probably the best networking and marketing book I've ever read. Next to that, if I give you a second one, would be The Fall of Advertising and the Rise of PR, which for anyone out there who's in sales should read that book. So the first book is about, like, don't ever do anything by yourself. If you're gonna fly in an airplane, make sure you meet the person to your left, person to your right. You never know, right? If you're gonna go have lunch with a coworker, have lunch with a staff member, have lunch with the person sitting next to you, get to know them. Like, that's what life is all about. You will quadruple your business that way. And then the second book, The Fall of Advertising and the Rise of PR, is all about, like, push and pull marketing. Like, advertising, you're pushing your message. PR is you're pulling people into your story, and that's very much like what we do here, right? That's what you're doing right now. Like this is brand development. You've got the hat, you're doing the thing, you're doing the podcast, and this isn't an ad, right? You're giving people entertainment in exchange for brand awareness, which is PR, and it's how you sell this these days, I think. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time. All right.
Was I supposed to catch that?
No, that was just
hilarious if it actually hit
no.
me.
Hits him in the eye.
No.
I wasn't expecting it.
No, that was like the